Hey everyone, how's it going? In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to enhance your night images. Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Matthew Shonwell. In this tutorial, I'm going to walk you through how to edit this night photo. Now, this is a picture I took, I think it was last year in Montreal. I did a photo tour, a Kickstarter tour. People funded me to go to Ottawa, Montreal, Quebec. This is in Canada, and to photograph the three cities at night. And this is one picture I took of one of the main bridges going into Montreal. Pretty great place. Montreal is an awesome place to photograph. So if you ever go there, if you're able to go there, it's a gorgeous place to photograph at night, which I hope to go back to do sometime again in the future. So, working through this picture, there's a couple things we definitely need to fix, but yeah, so stick with me, we'll have some fun. So the first thing is, if you notice here, this building on the left, it's actually not on an angle, but it's just because the lens I was using there is distortion. So I'm actually going to fix that first, because that's the number one thing I want to do right now. So if you go to your transform box panel, let's say, and if you adjust your vertical transform, you can see it starts to adjust and fixes a line. But you notice here there's this white line. And what Lightroom is doing is basically adjusting and manipulating and modifying the photo, essentially removing or adjusting what's happening to the actual lines based off what you said. So by default, this information doesn't exist because essentially Lightroom is bending the bottom of this picture. So to fix that, you go to Constrain to crop, and Lightroom automatically crops the photo. Now you notice here I see less of the building. I'll show you what's happening. All Lightroom does is crop your photo inside of the area that's visible. So if I wanted to have this building inside of this clock tower inside the picture, I needed to actually have more information on my left-hand side of the picture, but I don't, so it is what it is. All right, so now that I've fixed my lines at least, I can work with that now. The next thing I'm going to do is look at the white balance. And what I mean by white balance is the color of white. Clouds are not orange, right? So this white balance was on auto. It was an auto white balance. There's nothing wrong with that. But the camera chose a warmer white balance. So all I'm going to do is basically go to my white balance, my temperature tab here, and just click down and actually add some blue and just cool it down a little bit to bring it back to what I saw. Let's keep going. That's looking a lot better. Because also too, sort of your guideline to think of is, how does this cloud look? If this cloud looks orange, remember a cloud is usually white. If this cloud looks orange, it doesn't look good, or it doesn't look realistic, right? So every edit I do, I try to make it look realistic as possible. So let's go back here, drop down the white balance. I'm going to keep dropping it, pressing down on my keyboard, and that's looking better. Obviously, it's a much cooler photo. Now there's a bit of magenta in there as well. If you're looking here, there's a bit of blue and purple. If you want to reduce the magenta, you just go down to your tint and you add some green, and we'll reduce your magenta down. If you're like, hey, no, I want to add magenta, so you go to the right and it makes it more purple. It's personal preference, but I'm going to go this way, down the left, keep going. I'm liking that. I'm liking my blue though. There we go. Gonna do a little bit less of the tint. Now, what I'm doing is, you might be thinking, Matt, well, what's your reference point? Like, why are you doing so much, or why are you doing so little? It's personal preference, meaning I'm editing the photo to my taste. So I like it a little more blue. This is what I saw in reality, and this is what I want to represent in my picture. You may have captured it and said, hey, I love my photos more orange or more warm, and then you just make it more warm. Really, it doesn't matter how you process it, but you just need to learn how to use Lightroom to make your photos look the way you want. So in general, this is looking pretty good. Now, if you notice here, we have some highlights that are completely blown out because that's a light, right? So these are lights here. These are all lights. And essentially this building, I don't know if I'll be able to recover that, but I can at least try. So what I'm going to do is just try and drop down my highlights and see what happens. I'm going to go down all the way to minus 100. You can read the Molson sign, so you can definitely bring it back, but you don't want to have minus 100 highlights. It's not going to be really good for your picture. So I'm going to go about minus 56, a bit of a compromise there. Actually, if I go back and then minus 91, let's say, and I go plus on my whites, that definitely helps, but it's counterproductive, right? Because essentially there are certain elements that if you have a section of your photo here that it's just completely blown out, you're not really going to be able to fix it. Even though I'm shooting in RAW, I'm shooting a RAW picture that has all of the variability within it. There are some definite limitations in that. something to think of that way, because RAW is, in my opinion, a great way to shoot. It just allows you to not be perfect in the moment, right? And yeah, so let's keep working through this picture. So there are some great colors here. If you notice here, there are different, I want to show you guys something about white balance. So if you notice here, this light is white, but these lights are orange. It's because they're a different kind of light. We have most likely a halogen light, or a light that's daylight balanced. It's more of a blue light. And we have these lights that are tungsten lights that are not daylight balanced. They're more orange. Have you ever taken a picture that turned out orange or green or blue? Well, it's because the white balance is incorrect and it's not set. But this is a great picture that shows you different kinds of lights and the colors they give off. So this is what the camera's doing. So the camera saw a lot of orange light and chose a white balance that was a little more orange, just the nature of the process. Awesome. So now I'm working through this picture here. I'm going to add, as I was talking, added a bit of sharpening and add some noise reduction to reduce down some of that noise. Every night photo, or actually almost every picture I do a little bit of noise reduction, because not every camera is perfect, not every photo is perfect, and with any kind of ISO, you can sometimes still have noise, even at an ISO at 640. My camera I'm shooting with was a Nikon D750 or a D4. It's a full frame camera, really great in low light, but still, nothing is perfect. So looking here, in general, it looks pretty good. Like, it's not perfect, but it definitely works. What I'm going to do now is actually fix these black spots. So these black spots are, what are they? They're dirt spots on my lens. So think of this black spot as a speck of dirt that's on my lens, that when I take the picture, no light passes through that one spot, which is why that light spot shows up. So I can go through and adjust my spots by using my clone tool and actually clicking and cloning out all of these spots, and that makes definite sense. Another way to do it is to visualize the spots, is to actually use this tool here called Visualize Spots when you're on your clone tool. And what it's doing is essentially it's allowing you to see what's actually happening. So one second here, I'm going to go back to my clone tool, Visualize Spots. And essentially, all of these white spots are technically spots to see. Now, they're not actually bad things, because if you look at it, if we switch back here, those are actually stars, which I'm completely okay with having. What I don't want to have, though, are these black spots. So the black spots I do not want to have are the ones like this, which are the dirt spots. Those can ruin a picture, and they'll show up and they'll just mess with everything. And it's just not good. Really frustrating stuff. So camera maintenance, I recommend cleaning your lens whenever you can. A little random side note, you probably will not see those black spots up as much if you have a lower aperture. So I shot at aperture f14 for 30 seconds. A longer exposure photo, just like this one, will have more opportunity to see those black spots, because you're essentially capturing light over a longer period of time, and those black spots will show up because the whole depth of field is more deep. Whereas if you're shooting an aperture 2.8 or 1.8, you'll have a really shallow depth of field, and there's a very good chance you will not see those black spots. Random side note there, but hopefully that helps you along the way. So what I'm going to do now is I've done some adjustments. You might be thinking, Matt, I have no idea what the photo looked like before. So here's my backslash key. Here's the before. Here's the after. I'm going to show you another version of it. So on my left is the before. On my right is the after. And that's just a couple simple edits, right? So just to show you the context here, if I turn off my basics panel, so it's not every adjustment we've done, but it's the majority of them. If I turn off my basics panel, you'll see what the photo would look like, or you should see what it should look like. Oh, I can't do it. Oh, bummer. Brain fart there. Well, you get an idea. On the left-hand side, you see what it looked like before we did any editing. On the right-hand side, you see what it looked like with the edits we're doing. Beyond that, it's not done yet. We're going to still continue to work on this. So what we're going to work on, so if you notice here, there's a black spot here and it's nothing on this picture because we've removed it on this picture, right? So it's just showing you what it was before versus what it is now. Looking pretty good. This photo is not perfect, but it's the sharpness I need and want for right now, but it works for now. You see the beautiful water, smooth and milky. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to emphasize that even more by using a brush and painting off or painting a lack of sharpness, because I want to smooth this out even more. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to choose a brush, And I'm going to click New Brush, double-click the word New, double-click the word Effect, and the only thing I'm going to adjust is the sharpness. So I'm going to pull the sharpness down. Let's go to -100, and yes, it's going to affect it. You have to paint it on, and it's going to take time. And you may not actually see the adjustment on the screen as we're doing it, but it's going to make a difference. It's going to smooth out a lot of this stuff. Perfect. Now all I'm doing is painting on a lack of sharpening. Essentially, that's what the brush is doing. I'm painting a select area, which is the water, which is designed to be smooth already. Now, you can do more of this in Photoshop, more of this not in Lightroom, but this, for the most part, is working the way I want. I also want to make sure my density and my flow are up because there we go. That's starting to make a big difference. And all I'm doing is painting. And you might be thinking, oh, that is a little too much. There we go. If you notice here, when I painted this piece, if I go a little bit too high, it's going to paint over those. See how those are really blurred out now? That's not reality, right? That's not the way it's working. So I want to make sure that I'm really careful with my edges because I am painting a lack of sharpness. So it's essentially smoothing out a lot of this. And all I'm doing is emphasizing what was already happening in the picture. There we go. And just painting it. And so if I turn this brush off, you're going to see what the difference is. So here is the brush off. I want you guys to look right in this area. And here is the brush on. It's much more blurred, right? More blurred, more smooth. And that's just a way to emphasize it. It's not perfect, but it definitely works pretty well. I'm going to go back to my brush, make sure it's turned on, and we're good to go. I like that. That works out pretty good. Beyond that, it's if you really wanted to, you could go and make your clouds more white. Obviously, it's at night. It's a night photo. It's what I know, I'm definitely going to do this. So I'm going to grab a new brush, and I want to increase the details, meaning the contrast and the details of this main focal point. Right. So this is our main focal point. It's in the lower third of the picture, upper third, middle third, lower third. Now, I'm going to increase the detail. So I'm going to go New Brush, New, double-click the word Effect. And what I'm going to do is increase my clarity and increase my sharpness. So it's the complete opposite of what we did to the water. And the reason why is I want to just increase some of that. There we go. Increase some of that detail in that specific area. Now, you want to be careful. Obviously, with any edit, you don't want to be too heavy-handed. And different times will allow for different amounts. But in general, we're looking pretty good. So even the bridge. And all I'm doing is painting this element on the photo. Now, I'm just increasing. Everywhere I paint, I'm just increasing what I've chosen on the right-hand side. And I've chosen to increase the clarity. And I've chosen to increase the sharpness. There we go. It's looking pretty good. All right, so here, now that makes that pop for sure. So here's the before and after. So here's the before on the left-hand side. Here's the after. And it's just a pretty dramatic way. So here's a visual of the before and after as well, sort of side by side of the same picture. And it's a pretty big difference, right? It just takes time, right? Lightroom it's a process. Ultimately, you got to make sure you understand Lightroom so you can manipulate the photos to look the way you want. So this is a simple edit on a night photo. We used some masking, we did some color adjustments, some sharpening, basic panel stuff. We did luminance reduction or noise reduction. We did certain brushes. We did some clone tools, and it didn't take very long. But essentially, you can see that this is a great picture. Now, great is subjective. I like the one on the right. You might like the one originally on the left and just remove some of those dots. It doesn't really matter. Now, it's an important thing. I would love to edit your photos. So if you've got any photos, meaning they don't have to be professional photos, they can be anything, hopefully half decent, but essentially anything. I would love to edit them, but they would have to be in RAW. So if you want me to edit your photos, I would love to edit them, work through this stuff. If you have any interest in doing that, send me a message on Facebook and we can set it up where I can get your pictures and obviously give you all the credit. You still own them. I don't own them, but I'm just there to edit them and create a tutorial on them. So thank you for watching. Hopefully you guys learned a couple new things. My name is Matthew, and have a great day.